is that they're talking about that makes these scriptures sacred and that makes them eternal? And what tool is he using? What is that that third term of evaluation? It's individual human reason. And that's why this is a book of basic enlightenment. Now, you can see the problems that these two have with one another. These are counterpoised in certain respects, just as these are counterpoised. And these two are interesting because here on the one hand you have Ambedkar fighting with Sanatan Hindus that are opposed to his Hindu code bill. But still the axiom of all of this is, what does it mean to be Aryan? And that is an absolutely amazing axis on which all of this spins and turns. And then let me just quickly get to the other point. You can call this kind of a neutral or a Congress, Congress as in Indian National Congress, at the turn of the century position, or the one that Gandhi had, which is one of negotiating. Now, why do I say negotiating? Were the Aryans oppressors or liberators for Gandhi? Liberators? Yeah. What about the untouchability? Gandhi was opposed to that, right? Strongly opposed.
But he was, again there is an interesting thing that he believed in the Varnashrama Dharma,
Yeah.
which is 4.
Yeah.
So that 4 number should be kept. That is also a reason for not having a
Yeah.
category that's
So
outside.
find a space and put them in.
Yeah.
He won't strictly criticize Aryans, and
Like
he
that.
may find a reason to incorporate them. Or
So, but what every one of you is saying is that it is neither this, nor is it this, nor is it this. It has elements of each of them.
No, but I would say like by
You
the
would say
argument,
that it's
I would the argument till now we have, it is very much this, because he says like untouchability is an external element. It's just a digression or some kind of divergence from there, which we have to get back in track of the original Aryan, which is 4, and which largely these people also agree. Like
I don't disagree with you at all. What I'm trying to show is that there are several reasons to see him as negotiating. So let me switch, because that argument I'm just going to lose with you. So I'm going to switch to another, which is what is the position here about what qualifies as indigeneity? So a certain, you remember what we're going to read in Golwarkar, blood and soil. Blood and soil, basically. So the right to this soil is a consequence of the kind of blood that I have. Self-determination and territoriality for every ethnicity. Self-determination. Now, when? For some reason, these people say, whenever it is, it has to be before the Muslims came. Right? That's a basic fact. So Christians, I don't want to deal with. They don't deal with the Christians because they think of Christians as a colonial phenomenon, even though we know that India was Christian before Europe was Christian. But they didn't, not a lot of these guys were the cleverest. So they said, okay, forget about Christianity for the time being. Let's talk about Islam, and we know that the cutoff line is before the Muslims came. Then you're indigenous. If you come after, if your name is Muhammad, you're no longer indigenous. Okay? I don't care where you were born. So, does Gandhi agree with that? Come on, this is an easy one. Okay. So there's a shared, you can find all of the shared things, but you can also find shared parts of these people represented eccentrically by Gandhi. Obviously, he's not the mainstream of Congress in all respects. Now let's think about one problem. The Aryan, the original Aryan, liberators. They are liberators. Why? Because they bring the Veda, they bring the Upanishads, right? They bring the different philosophical schools that lead us all the way up to the greatest spokesman of this kind of ideological position, like Radhakrishnan, for example. Shastras, the Darsanas, the Mahabharata, the Gita. What does Gandhi think about that? The Gita. Only book I need, right? Some round glasses and the Gita, and I'm fine. So you can't have that Gita unless you have the Aryan. Now what do I do? So you're stuck with a tenuous position of, yes, they brought wonderful things, but they brought terrible things. They brought things that we champion, and they brought things that we dislike. But what does that create now here? The British, the German Indologists. Yes, we agree with you. What a glorious civilization India was when it came to the Aryans, except now you have systematic inequalities, you have systematic poverty, illiteracy, and so on, and we're going to correct all of those things. And what do people here say? Okay, good, let's create universities on the Macaulay model, and let's execute basically the plan that you have in mind. We're going to import all of these models of modernization, and to deal with the problems that are persistent. Like, what was the most Gayatri Spivak writes about this, the most emblematic, symptomatic thing that is being debated between these people had social reformers too, and they all wanted to stop sati, right? So sati turned out to be a perfect thing that all of these people can agree upon.
Then there was no, like, whom we are talking about, like, when sati debate was going on Congress.
This is I'm talking about reformers who will come in this very general category. You can't find, this is a century sooner, right? But you can't find a single person in Congress, as far as I know, who would say, you know what we did the last 70 years was all wrong. We should go back, lead back over social reform, and come back to some of the values that they are articulating. I don't think you'll find anybody. And if you find one, it's going to be an anomaly for sure. So what we see happening here is that everything that you can represent as quarrels about modernity in India, what it means, what its values are, how derivative it is, imitative, rather is it creative, have we created our institutions, is it authentic, do we have Swaraj, do we not have Swaraj? All of these issues can be recapitulated on a graph based on one axis only, which is the Aryan Invasion hypothesis. That's why this invasion is something that we cannot solve, because we can't solve any of these debates or problems. We have yet to, this whole course is on the very fact that these debates still stand. And if these debates still stand, and they all turn in a relationship to the Aryan Invasion, how on earth, as many IITs as we can open in this country, we still cannot convince anyone to do genetic tests of the so-called, Mahars or Chamar, and find out, or this kind of Brahmin or that kind of, find out whether whether these are indigenous. Whether these are distinct haplogroups or not. Why not? I mean, shouldn't we do something like that? Every one of us in this room could just submit ourselves to this test, and we would have at least a small sample of figuring out the answer to this question. It's not hard, right? Especially with a country of the scientific temper as we have, to quote Nehru, and all these IITs and all of this stuff, and yet we cannot crack this simple question: was there an Aryan invasion? only 3,500 years ago? It's not a hard question. It's been solved in every other case. We can't solve it. All right. Ambedkar has solved it. Ambedkar thinks that there's enough, I'm joking, Ambedkar thinks that there is enough evidence that is agreed upon by all of these people to move forward with some certain conclusions. So he has his own peculiar idea, which, as I said, I don't fully understand yet because I have a lot more to read. He has his own peculiar idea that there were at least two, and one were the Rigveda Aryans and the others were the Atharvaveda Aryans. And when I find out what he's talking about, I'm going to be thrilled. But there's something there, which is that in the supposition he's trying to give everybody a little bit of what they need in order to accept that basically there have been mass migrations of people across these continents, as everybody else in the world has been stating. This is important for two reasons. One is very explicit. Then it fits with the rest of archaeology, anthropology, sociology throughout the world. Now, the second is, then why is India so different from the rest of the world? Right? You have to ask the question, if we're the same peoples, if we originate possibly from groups that are genetically identical to the males coming from Central Asia that also went to become the Greeks and to become Romans and to become the Irish and to become the Persians and so on. Why is it that we are the only country that has a system of what Ambedkar calls graded inequality? What does graded inequality mean? Well, I suppose that's incorrect. Why is it that we have a system of graded inequality in the 20th century? Okay, because obviously there's always been